We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
Good evening, welcome back to the 3 Amigos on NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Good evening to War George, the one-eyed naval architect, Steve Hasty, who's looking for a table for Sandro Tonali, and Mitch, who is in Bahrain with no shoes now after the heat. Put paint to his shoes today. What happened, Mitch?
I went out for a walk with Stu. The heat melted the soles off my shoes. When was Stuart fault for gone for a wander in 49 degrees stroke feels like 51? So that seemed like a good idea to have a little wander around. So I had to sort of hot-footed home, quite literally.
Classic. Absolutely brilliant. Well, this is the 3 Amigos, as you know, and we will kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. Manchester City, of course, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, live on TNT. Nothing to do with AC/DC. As always, plenty of favourites included tonight, including your tweets of the week and the lookalikes. And let's start with another incoming George, Lewis Hall. Although the club haven't gone through the the fanfare yet, we haven't seen him paraded in his black and white shirt. We have seen him arrive at the training ground. We have seen him whisked in for his medical, and we do know that Lewis Hall is going to become Eddie Howe's latest signing. It's going to be a loan deal with an option to buy, £28 million potentially. A deal which seems to suit both parties, especially with financial fair play rules and regs. Certainly, the caveats that have been added will benefit both teams. But it's another young player coming in. It's somebody who will fill a full-back role and somebody who will bolster the squad. And Eddie, in his press conference review today, which I will put out tomorrow, saying that it's a step closer to having two like-for-like 11s, two strong 11s, which is what he's trying to do. Although he says he'll always continue to build. You're never quite happy, and you never find that perfect mix, but getting there slowly but surely, and he's very happy with this acquisition, George.
And so he should be. The little I've seen of the lad when he's come on for Chelsea as a sub, and all, he's always looked. He hasn't looked out of place, even though he was one of the younger ones, and that's always a good sign for me. And it's also a good sign for me that our scouting group have seemed to have hung on to him for a while, and that Eddie Howe's happy to have him, and that's got to be good for the whole team. I mean, the nice thing about his ages is that he's of an age where he can learn from Trippier and just step into the role when he's ready, and that might not be as far away as people imagine in football terms. So, no, I think it's a great acquisition, as you've said, another young acquisition. And the the interesting thing is our 75 million budget so to about 150 now, I think, which is, as we said from the off, was always the 75 million was always pie in the sky and a guesstimate rather than the real thing. No, I think it's a great signing, Steve, and I think it fits in so many ways with it being young, being a fullback that could slot in, can learn his trade off one of the best fullbacks in the league, and look forward to seeing him playing in a black and white shirt, to be honest.
Yeah, it's another youngster. It's a fullback. It's competition for Matty Target for Dan Burn, Steve. Dan Burn, of course, has been, quoted in the past by saying that, if we do sign a left back and, I've got competition, then, a left back will commence. He's not going to get downhearted about it. And Eddie said as well, he wants competition in all areas. And we're going to have, a lot more games this season with the Champions League, especially, and hopefully 2 good cup runs. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's a great acquisition. I mean, for Newcastle United to go out and buy a youngster who's so highly rated at Chelsea is remarkable. It's only last week they were offering him a 6-year contract. He obviously turned it down. He stayed on the contract he's on, and then there's this little deal that's been put together which helps both clubs. And it's one of those conversations that we've had and it's been milling around for a few months now about financial fair play. And people who don't quite understand it are probably getting a flavour for it now, and they're starting to realise that it involves a lot of jiggery-pokery, let's put it that way, when it comes to what you can and can't do and what you can get away with more than anything else. Looks a great player. I mean, great prospect, put it that way. He played against us last year. And it was Potter, who is no longer at Chelsea, who I think did bring him in because that's who the manager was at the time when we played them. I'm just looking at their team last year. He played as a wing back down the left hand side with Koulibaly alongside him. Well, Koulibaly playing on the inside of a 5, and when he moved into midfield, he had Kovacic, and in front of him he had Mason Mount. Down that left-hand side. So it's an interesting that we've gone for a player who can not only play a standard left-back, but also can play as a wing-back. Again, more options. Great to see. Look forward to seeing him, like everybody else, holding the shirt up, and then we know it's a definitely done deal. As you see, he's apparently on Tyneside having a medical at the moment. But he'll be welcome at Tyneside. There's no question about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mitch, we are making a habit of signing potential England fullbacks, and we're doing it quite quietly. I did see somebody tweet that earlier today. Lee Ryder, I think it was. Yeah, I've just found it here. He says, Newcastle United have just calmly signed 2 potential future England fullbacks in the space of 10 days. Good business, Neil.
Very good business. We had about half our heads up. While we were getting sorted to go on my wonder, Stu took a phone call from a contact who said the medical's booked and we're off and running. And then about 30 minutes later, there was Keith Downey breaking it on Twitter. And 15 minutes after that, Fabrizio. So Stu come through with the contacts yet again. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is the reaction of the proper Chelsea fan base. They seem to be very disappointed that he's being allowed to leave. And that's, I think, for a team that's currently trying to look like they're trying to confirm the FFP, when really I think they know they're failing, and they know they're failing very, very deliberately, but that's maybe a topic for another time. But, it to see their fans unhappy about them moving on, that's a measure of the player that we've got in terms of potential. I think another big thing is he's young, he's English, and we're looking at how the squads are put together for Europe and for the Premier League. Because of his age, it sort of negates and gets around a lot of that. But we know he can play Premier League, he's Premier League ready. Mightn't be the finished article, but he's got Premier League minutes under his belt already, and that's significant. And we are quietly, like we said, this is actually a scenario we've discussed a couple of times on here. There would come a point in the transfer window where somebody needed something and we could provide the help and a negotiation would happen. Okay, how can we help you? You can help us. And so we've done it by saying, right, let's have a loan, obligation to buy, pushes the money into next year, but we get the player now. Everybody's happy. And that fascinates us, is that it's the opportunistic manner that they told me, this transfer window, we've got an idea what we want to do, but we will be opportunistic. If something's prepared, it was a pair of Adidas actually, but thankfully an older pair. Thank fuck. That we would be prepared to wheel and deal on an opportunistic basis to make the deals happen when it suited us. And also, like my dad touched on, it makes a mockery of people saying they knew how much we had to spend at the start of the window. Nobody did. And I think that's something else the club's been very good at this window. Smoke and mirrors. Jangle a set of keys and make everybody look we're there while we're at the other side doing the business and proper. And I think that's fantastic. I think, and I'm all for it, more of it, yes, please. And so, yeah, couldn't be happier. I mean, it really does turn this into a very, very good window indeed.
I'm going to push you on the Chelsea stuff, Mitch, because that's what we do on a Friday. And I'm going to let you start with it because the way that it works out, sometimes you end up last. And I think this is very much your flaw, this one. The Chelsea financial fair play. I mean, they're constantly putting up the list of players that Chelsea have, purchased under Bowley. And, I mean, we need 2 screens. To look at the list. Newcastle in their time under the current ownership have spent 425 million. We're closing in on £1 billion, I think. Is it $1 billion with Chelsea? It must be close.
850 million, something like that. Yeah.
Wow, unbelievable.
And they were, from an FFP point of view, in a very, very much stronger position from years of Champions League money, better sponsorship, better commercial deals, better commercial setup, etc., etc., etc. But there's been a growing feeling, and I see a guy who was an advisor to Man City in the past has raised this as well this week, that it looked very much to me like they very deliberately are looking like they're trying to not fail FFP, but they know they're going to fail FFP. They know they're going to fail FFP pretty badly. They've already turned themselves in on one set of accounts under Abramovich to say, well, look, it wasn't us, it was this horrible Russian man who did all of this. And that's to try and lessen any blow of any penalty. But my gut feeling is that Todd Bowley views FFP as something that can be broken because the financial penalty will be tolerable. And there will be no sporting penalties, no points deduction, no transfer ban, something like that. I think he's working on an assumption that any sanction that's put on them will be financial alone, and we can absorb that. If it means we can overhaul our squad, get a squad full of younger players on longer-term contracts with slightly more favourable terms for us than them. Looking at the words coming out of people like Lavier's mouth when they're signing, I've come here for the history. What, for the last 20 years? Is that what you've chosen Chelsea over Liverpool for the history? Really? For all I have issues with Liverpool Football Club at the moment, if you want to compare their histories, it's that there's no comparison. So don't use that word when you're signing, and everybody knows you're signing for the money. That's what you're going there for. And are you going there for your sporting opportunity? Why would you, as a young central midfielder, when they've just signed what feels like 500 million midfielders, go there when you could have first-team opportunities elsewhere straight away? It doesn't seem to make sense. And it was an interesting, somebody pulled something up about what Bowley did in baseball. He's done something very similar with the Dodgers when he took them over. Blew the salary cap wide open, knowing that there would be a small financial penalty for 2 or 3 years when they did it, and they turned the team into a winning team, and he got his money back and then some. So he is obviously working from a presumption we can bully any failure of FFP into purely a financial penalty and not a sporting penalty. And I hope whoever imposes those penalties has their trousers down, bends them over a barrel and gets the Vaseline ready and gives it to them, because they need to be taught a lesson back the other way. The other thing, however, what it will do is if somebody doesn't hit them with a proper penalty, it'll be the end of FFP.
Yeah.
And that, in some respects, might benefit us at the end of the day. Because with no FFP restrictions, you think Chelsea has spent some money? Dear me, what would we do with no FFP restrictions? And I think we may be watching very cautiously from the sidelines and patiently saying, well, let's see where this runs. But make no bones about it, with this whole deal, we're not helping them because they don't want help, because they don't want to pass FFP. They know they're going to fail it. They just want to look like they had a try. You know, they'll get the "we tried hard" medal. And then that's what I'm hoping for, is they're hoping that any penalties financial alone, and that they can absorb it over a period of time. And in the meantime, they revamp their squad and they spent the money, and so what?
Okay, Steve, it's the end of financial fair play, Mitch reckons. I mean, we have discussed this, you know, in a roundabout way over the last couple of weeks, but certainly interesting. And interesting to see us doing business. I think a lot of people are quite surprised. A few eyebrows being raised in the chat tonight. A few people on Twitter saying, "Wow, a big cartel team doing business with Newcastle." But I think we nipped that in the bud ourselves, didn't we? When we saw Amanda and Mirdad sitting with Bowley, you know, in those early months of his reign at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's not put too fine a point. This is a deal that suits Newcastle United, but it's a deal that also suits Chelsea. I mean, the fact that there's an obligation to buy tells you that more than likely Chelsea will load that onto this season. They'll roll in the obligation to pay £28 million now onto their books. So that gives them, remember, he cost them nothing. He's another youngster, and exactly the same as Mason Mount and Loftus-Cheek and the rest of the players that they've offloaded that came through their academy, or as people used to refer to it as the football farm, because they had a player farm. I mean, the amount of wheeling and dealing that they've done over the last 15 years under Abramovich has been unbelievable. And that's what's held them in good stead, because, you know, you even look at tomorrow, we're playing Man City. Man City have a central defender that they paid 40 million for from, I think it was Bournemouth, who Bournemouth paid 20 million for from Chelsea, because he was on their books. And this is what Chelsea have done, just simply, you know, hived off players, played them in Europe for a couple of seasons, brought them back, never got them really into the first team, but then all of a sudden sold them on for a massive, massive profit, and released an awful lot of money on the FFP scale. So that's what they've done again. But yeah, I mean, it could well be, you know, the end of financial fair play. There's an awful lot of factors I think are now going to start to come into play with regards to FFP. We're hearing whispers that Saudi Arabia want to be entered with a bonus ball, if you like, a wild card into the Champions League. Money talks. That'll happen. And what will the price that be paid? Well, they'll turn around and say, well, we need to do something about the FFP. And there'll be money, and UEFA will be happy, and UEFA will start to reduce their stranglehold on FFP, which is obviously run slightly differently to the way FFP's run in the Premier League. I think we've suddenly entered into a wholly different set of circumstances, and it's not because Saudi Arabia have suddenly decided to up the ante. It's because the Premier League is now full of American owners. That's something that we talked about. What must have been 3 seasons now, Mitch, that we've raised this subject of American owners and how they will play the game, work around it, get what they want ultimately. And let's face it, that's one of the reasons why we've got an 8 o'clock kickoff tomorrow, because it fits in perfectly with a 3 o'clock kickoff in America. You know, that's the way that's the way it's playing out. There's no football in America yet. You know, the season hasn't started in the NFL. So there's a gap there. So they're filling it with Premier League, and they're hoping to increase their share. The the Premier League have just opened an office in New York, to promote the Premier League. Lots of things going on. They wouldn't have done that if the Premier League wasn't full of American owners. This is the game that's happening, Steve. And we're going to have to get used to it, whether we like it or not. Like an awful lot of other things that we're going to have to get used to. A lot of things that we're probably going to talk about in the next sort of 45 minutes to an hour. Things that we're not used to, but we're going to have to get used to, like taking ID to the game, etc., etc.
Oh, we'll come on to that, Steve. We'll come on to that. George, financial fair play, Chelsea, discuss.
Well, the lads have hit all the nails on the head for me, but the big one is the one that Neil raises. It's on penalties. When people do breach the rules, and what we've seen so far, particularly with the European FFP, Manchester United's penalty was derisory. I mean, it was hardly enough to pay the wages of one player or a fee for one player, never mind be a real penalty. Now, if that's what they're gambling for, and that's going to be the same with the Premier League, then I'm sorry, who's to blame them? If Bowley thinks he can get away with it, and I've got to say, it'd be fair to him, he's made it clear since he come that he was going to spend everything he possibly could to get Chelsea in. And you lads have said more than once, he knows a lot about money, but very little about football. And I think Neil's absolutely right. It's time somebody taught him a little bit about football. And if that means a severe penalty of some sort, then that's got to be it. Because if it isn't, then Neil's right again. That's the end of it. Why should everybody else sit back and take it if they get away with doing just about what they like? So no, it's a danger for FFP, both European and for the Premier League, if Chelsea behave like that and get away with it. And I think again, we're sitting back watching what's happening. I think that's absolutely right as well. There's no need for us to get involved at the moment. We're doing quite nicely, thank you. But as lads have already said, just imagine if there was no FFP and it was open house. My goodness, if they were frightened before, goodness gracious, they'll be running to the toilet very quickly after that. It really would be in serious trouble. So no, but that's the big danger. I think the lads have hit the nail on the head. Is that it's FFP that's in danger if they don't handle this right. And the other issue, well, it's an interesting one. Steve raised the issue of Saudi Arabia teams wanting to sort of a leg into the Champions League. Well, again, great. And the thing for football is it'll bring money in. I mean, look what Liv wasn't going to do anything for golf. Well, look at it now. It's all Liv money, and it's we could be the same with in football. So that's an interesting sideline, and the way the UEFA grab every penny that's offered in their direction, it wouldn't surprise me to see that happen as well. So interesting times, lads.
Certainly interesting times. One of the conversations we've had again on this show with respect to repeating ourselves, George, is Saudi ownership. I don't know whether you've ever heard us talking about it, but it has been mentioned on many occasions. Well, of course, there was another thing chucked into the mix this week. 2 internationals announced at St. James's Park for the Saudi national team has got people with their knickers in a twist, George. From our perspective, I think it's great news because ultimately the commercial department have got 2 events, 2 internationals to be played at our stadium, which will create revenue, which ultimately, will help us have more money to spend come January. But it's just another stick to knock us with, George.
Champion. I mean, I love it, to be perfectly honest. If we're going to be involved, we've got to embrace it. And the best thing coming out of embracing it is that the Saudis will see how we do it. And I think that they'll learn a lot from how we do it, how open being involved with Geordies in Newcastle and the city and in the area is. and some of that will peel off. Some of that will look how our friend Al Wade is almost a joy now, but others will fasten onto that as well, and I'm all for it. It gives a different perspective, and if these internationals are successful, let's have some more. Who knows what can come of it? I mean, look at taking it away from football. Look at how the Rugby League Magic weekend. Look at the impact that's had on Newcastle and the city and the club. The people from Magic weekend don't want to go anywhere else. They just want to come to Newcastle, and I think we could get more of that. So if it's 2 internationals, 4 internationals, I couldn't care less. Bring it on is my attitude. If we're involved, we're involved, and if we're going to try and hide behind something else to kind of shield the fact that we're involved with Saudi Arabia, I ain't for that. We're either in it or not in it, and I'm in it. So let's have it, and let's have some more.
Would you go to watch it, George? Would you go to watch one of the games?
Yes, it's football. I'm a football fan, essentially. Yes, I'm a Newcastle fan, but I love me football, and if it offers something different, I'll go and have a look at it. I mean, we've watched all sorts of dross up there over the years. I'll go and watch somebody else's for a change. But I would certainly, if I'm around and able to get a ticket, yes, I would go. No doubt about it.
I mean, Steve, the national team coming here is no great surprise to me. I've got to be perfectly honest. And with the, with the inclusion of Salah, who, will be involved heavily in the fan zone, and then ultimately you would imagine on putting on other events, because that's what they do. I also think, and let's just remind people that we predicted when the takeover went through, that at some point, when there is somebody good enough, there will be a Saudi player signed by Newcastle, because that is what the Saudi people will buy into. They've already bought into the football club. They've already bought into the history of our wonderful club. But they would love to see one of their own, not one of our own, donning the black and white and getting a goal in a cup final. You know what I mean? That's going to be part of it as well. So I'm afraid those people who are knocking the idea of 2 international games at our stadium are going to have a lot more to complain about over the coming years, Steve.
You know what? You're dead right there, Steve. Imagine a Saudi player being good enough to play for Newcastle United, good enough to break into the Champions League. Imagine the boost that would give to Saudi footballers back in their own country. People who are youngsters now who are just on the path of trying to get a football career, to know that there's one of their own. It's kind of a throwback to the days of Kevin Keegan breaking the mold and going to play abroad, and that type of thing. It shows that there's opportunity there for people, and it would be an amazing achievement for a Saudi player to be selected and to be good enough. That's the key, to be good enough to be selected to play for Newcastle United. It will happen eventually. It's bound to happen, because that's the way that the game's going to open up. And I think also what's going to happen with the Saudi League is that other football clubs are going to start looking at Saudi players, because they're going to have the opportunity to. So you might see an influx of Saudi players. Maybe I'm not talking about next season. It might be 10 years' time, but it will happen, just as the way that footballers from the African continent have broken into the European leagues and then been spotted and come into the Premiership. It's an inevitability. And as far as the games being played in St James's Park, you know what? There's an awful lot of fuss being made. There's not a lot of words being said. There's a lot of sniping going on. But this has been happening in London for years now, where clubs from South America, clubs from Africa, countries, national teams from South America and from Africa have played games, friendly games in London, played them there because there's been a community that they've wanted to draw in. Middle Eastern clubs of countries have played there. It's nothing new. It just so happens that this time round it's Newcastle United, it's Saudi Arabia, so it's a headline. So it makes the BBC website, so it makes people stand up, makes people question it. We're talking about £5 a ticket as well, by the way, Steve. We're not talking about an astronomical amount of money. And it would be a great opportunity to see players that we saw only, 8 months ago in the World Cup, who actually took on and beat the eventual World Cup winners in Argentina. And do you remember the excitement that there was when that result came over? And those of us who watched the game, I'm sure remember, and we were, not, as football fans, we're jumping for joy at the sight of Argentina getting beat, not because it was Saudi Arabia, but because it got beat. But then the clincher was, yes, it was Saudi Arabia. Yes, there was a link to our football club. But that wasn't why we're cheering. We're cheering because there was a quality game of football by two quality international teams. And one that came out on top is now going to be playing at St. James's Park in a couple of weeks' time. And they're not the only ones, by the way. It's not just the national team. There are youth teams coming from Saudi Arabia during the next couple of weeks to really sort of show what they've got. And I'm sure people it'll be published soon, and people get the opportunity to see some of the youth players that are playing for Saudi clubs and seeing what the quality's like. And it's a great comparison for them to actually show themselves and show their own talent and to benchmark themselves against maybe academy teams at Newcastle and other academy teams from some of the non-league clubs and some of the boys clubs that we have in the region. So it's a great time to be following football. It's a great time to be following Newcastle United, but the wider game as well, Steve, because it's broadening our horizons. That's important. Have your horizons broadened on the football pitch. Forget about the politics and forget about the chaff that flies around it. We're football fans, and that's what we're interested in. Watching football, taking in football, and maybe at the same time spotting some potential superstars in the making. That's why sometimes we go to non-league games to watch football, when there's no football being played and we have the non-league weekend. So if there's an opportunity to watch football fans will go and watch.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch, I think that's the thing that I've got from both your dad and from Steve, that it's football. We're football fans, we are going to go and watch these. And if I got to go and watch a Saudi national team play at St. James's Park, and it'll be a monumental game for them to be playing there, not once but twice. What's the problem with that? And
because of the way people have behaved towards us with regards to FFP and things like this, something like this was a fait accompli. Was always going to happen. Because we've got to sort it out for ourselves. We've got to find inventive ways to improve revenue, to make FFP balance, because the pressure's been put on. I saw somebody saying, well, this has definitely got to be a related party transaction. It has to be assessed. Well, no, it doesn't. PIF don't own the Saudi national team. They own 4 teams in the Saudi National League, but they don't have anything to do with the FA. This is a Saudi FA decision made with the club. And therefore, any facility fee that we are charging, for example, isn't a related party fee and shouldn't be up for assessment. And so, but we've been forced into decisions like this. And then the same people who forced us into these decisions will be the same people wanting to start to ask the same tired old questions that we've gone round and round in circles with for years now. And yes, it is healthy to revisit some of this on a regular basis and reassess what our relationship with Saudi Arabia in general is. But equally, we've got to get to where everybody's at peace with certain things that were always ever going to happen. And I think we're at the point now where the point my dad makes about we're all in or we're not, we've got to accept that we're all in and take everything that comes with it and be prepared sometimes to just ignore stuff and walk away when it's nonsense and when it's pointed and when it's very deliberately a bear trap. Let's not walk into any of those. Let's continue to have healthy conversations. where we can ask questions, where we can raise things, where there are opportunities to interact with people at a higher level within Saudi Arabia. I sit in I'm in Bahrain now. I'm normally in Dubai. This entire region has changed so much in the entire time. I know I've said this over and over again. Stu and I have been out here a very similar length of time, and we see the same changes. In particular, he sees more of it because he deals with a lot more people from Saudi. We were talking about some of this afternoon, funny enough. And so even into the way that they do business is changing. And so I think we have to appreciate we're actually in quite a privileged position to have interaction at some levels that other people just can't. And we know Geordies will not keep our gob shut. If we see something we're not happy about, we're gonna tell you. But again, as supporters of Newcastle United, that should be our role as the club's most critical and valued friend, no matter what they do and who they do it with. And I see nothing but more good things coming out of it than bad. And so, I think also people going to the games, particularly if you go to see the one against South Korea, you will get a surprise at the standard of football in the Asian Football Conference. It's a lot higher.
I tell you what as well, the excitement, if I refer back to the time when we were in Riyadh, and the guys that invited you and Stu to the game and as his guest, and the excitement that milled around his group because his club were playing Newcastle United was admirable. But the high-ranking sort of role that he played within that football club was quite surprising. And the strength of excitement, I suppose, just added to his opinion of football. And I think, if I remember rightly, he made it very strongly, made it known to you guys how long his Saudi football club had been around. It wasn't, people have made out that the Saudi league is sort of, 5 years old and 6 year old. This Saudi league's been going since the 1970s,
He took us to a house. He had the league trophy on his dining table.
That's right. Yeah. Imagine it. Imagine you go to somebody's house in this country and finding the Premier League trophy on the mantelpiece. And it's just like, this is what the guy was like. Absolutely amazing. An amazing experience for you and Stewie. I remember just being so excited for you guys because it was giving you to another sort of angle on what football means in Saudi Arabia, because I know you'd experienced it with Roy and with various other people in Dubai, and I know Mitch had experienced it in Bahrain to a lesser extent. But to then actually hear, I was going to say from the horse's mouth, but it was more the camel's mouth, wasn't it? to hear these guys, really, really.
That he delivered for us made that entire trip exceptionally more special. Not just the stuff we did with the club and seeing the game itself, but that little sort of insight into the depth and strength of passion towards football within normal, if quote unquote, Saudi Arabian people. And the fervour in the crowd when into that VVIP area when our chairman came in, and it was like a rock star walked into the crowd.
Yeah, the young lads,
kids running over, people going over to take photos. It's like, well, who's that? Oh, it's His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan. It's like it was startling because we sat off to the side. That was how me and Stu ended up sitting with Darren Eales, because we were just sat at that bit. We were the side. We were VIP, and it was quite an experience indeed.
He's got a good song, Mark. Hope they walk onto the pitch with Gannon along the Riyadh Road to see the camel races.
Actually, the other thing that shines this weekend is that we're in the front, aren't we? We're in the caravan because the government now breaking its neck to do deals with Saudi Arabia and all the Middle Eastern countries. And here we are, Newcastle United, right at the front of it, sitting in the middle of it. I think it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a couple of things over the last 48 hours where Rishi Sunak is, as you say, busting a gut to get Bin Salman over to the UK. I mean, somebody's just mentioned in the chat that might tie it in with one of the games. He could end up being at St James's Park. Dear me, there'll be people having cardiac arrests over that. There will be people not happy at all.
Not at all.
They will have a lot to complain about if that happens. So watch this space. We are 40 minutes into the show, over 500 watching. We'll never take that for granted. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you.
As always, this is the Three Amigos. And because there's quite a few tweets of the week, we're going to go with that first today. Yeah, tweet of the week. Honestly, I get a backlog of these, and sometimes I forget when they've sent them or who sent them. Paul Tobin says, this looks like Sophia Loren and Pinocchio hooked up and she wrecked him.
Oh, dear.
Unbelievable. That's what people see in a photograph. According to Tetley, the best way to make a cup of tea is to agitate the bag, says Dunstan Mag. So every morning I slap her arse and say 2 sugars fatty. And that's Dunstan Mag is now sleeping in the garden tonight. For me putting that up. A weasel walks into a bar, says Stephen. The bartender looks up and says, wow, in all my years tending bar, I've never had a weasel stop by. What can I get you? Pop goes the weasel.
Oh, Stephen.
Oh, God.
Brilliant. As a security guard, my boss said my job is to watch The Office, says Dunnell. I'm on season 6 so far. I'm not sure what this has to do with security.
Well, that's good. I like that one.
And nothing starts with an N and ends in a G. Change my mind. James loves a bit of Star Wars. David Lee Hoff.
Very good. Very good.
And if you're going to ride my ass, at least pull my hair. Wayne Bennett pointing out a canny sticker on the back of a woman's car in America. You have won a season ticket at Sunderland and large fries. Thanks to T-Tank for that McDonald's Happy Meal classic. And do Sharks play the harmonica like this or like this?
Oh.
We'll leave Ian to spend his Friday night trying to work that out.
Nice.
A rare photo of a remote control from the 70s.
That is true. That is true.
And keep back from the platform edge or you may get sucked off. Ian doesn't want to be threatened with a good time, he says.
No.
We should go out for a coffee sometime. How about 10 tomorrow? No, that's too many.
Oh.
Dear
and I asked my doctor if masturbation was bad for my eyesight. He said, you're in Halford's, mate. They said hanging baskets in your garden would improve the look. I'm not convinced. Wrong type of baskets, mate. And I'll never join one of those online dating services. I prefer to meet someone the old-fashioned way, through alcohol and poor judgment. And when you're relaxing on the couch, but your boxes are too short. Grand flaking layers. What on earth they are, I really don't know. It's a boy, shouted tears. I shouted, tears rolling down my face. I don't believe it, a boy. It was at that moment I chose to never visit Thailand again, says Ian.
Yeah.
Take a good look at that picture, lads. What it does look like a T-Rex, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
One of those weird photos which you look at and you just think, what am I actually seeing here? But yeah, that is really good. I'm just going to add a few more tweets as I move on to the next picture. Now, those of you who follow some of the Sunderland sites will have seen this.
Yes.
Now, I can't find the other photos, sadly, but that was put outside a Love Supreme. the fanzine shop, which isn't far from the Stadium of Light. That ladder was used by Magnus to actually paint the strip of the Newcastle fan black and white. So it was changed, but fancy putting that up outside there. What an absolute classic. Okay, I got the rest of them loaded. Here we go. Don't steal my tools. I need them to pay your benefits. Just another day in Liverpool on the back of a paving specialist van. And fancy a Chinese? Why not go to Minge Palace? All you can eat. And focus on the old man describing what has happened to the visually impaired woman. I did see this on Twitter, Ugly Camel. Thought that was fantastic. Newcastle had scored, and there he was making an explaining how the goal went in. That was beautiful. That was a wonderful photo. I saw a woman walking towards the door, so I opened it for her to be nice. Instead of thanking me, both she and everyone else on the plane started screaming. Jimmy Moore, tweet of the week. Barber, what would you like, lad? Customer, the Man United, please. No problem. And more hairdressing malarkey. The wife told the husband to take the twins for a haircut. Get different haircuts so that you can identify them. This is how we brought them back. Number one and number two. That probably happened as well. That probably happened. If you think you're having a bad day, remember the woman standing behind 3 mannequins. And married to a man, 27. Honey, the car will not drive. When I'm not with you, you have to sit on the other side. This one's been used a few times, Ugly Camel, but Mo Salah's still sulking and refusing to leave Stamford Bridge to get on the Liverpool team bus after his little hissy fit last week.
He did sulk, mind.
Matt Lansdowne, this was fantastic. He goes, my son's love for Sandro may have gone over the top. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Classic.
Man digs 12-foot deep hole without realising his metal detector was picking up his steel toe safety boots. And somebody keeps sending me flowers with their heads cut off. Sounds like you're being stalked.
Oh, Frankie.
And how did you get hurt? Says Dr. Bones McCoy to Captain Kirk. Let's just say if you're dating a dominatrix, never say it's time to hit the sack. Harry Kane's moved, if you didn't know. Harry Kane said he was thrilled to be find out most of Bayern Munich players speak English, and says he plans to start learning it himself. And Bayern Munich lose the German Super Cup in Harry Kane's first match. You can take Kane out of Spurs, but you can't take Spurs out of Kane.
That's true.
Liverpool on deadline day.
Wouldn't be surprised.
And Jurgen Klopp, Clippity Klopp and his shit from the cop. Press my head and hear me talk. Phrases include, it's not our fault. We can't compete. We only have £300 million to spend. It's not fair that they are better than us. Plus more delusional scouse bullshit. And a thing from a picture from Gary Thompson is if you first saw blood splatter, you watched too many horror movies. And Kane, I've made it, says Luca. He's talking like he's just escaped from the Taliban. Yeah, did see that in the interview. And had a great day yesterday at the National Coal Mining Museum. Some photos
Very clever. Very clever.
Thanks to Zara, as always. She says, sometimes it's hilarious. My brother-in-law's an Aston Villa fan. This is one of those times, of course, reflecting on last weekend's result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stressed spelled backwards is dessert. Exactly why I'm fat. And one for the men. You left the toilet seat up, she says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All been there. Wayne Bennett says, yes, that's right, a Victoria's secret agent. It's like watching a rhino that's been tranquilized and woken up in a different national park. Horace was, of course, talking about Harry Kane, who looks absolutely terrified in Germany when he's about to undergo his medical. And a few more. Barbie's Crack House, pictured there. James, is that in Atlanta? I know you're in the chat. A man's reach should extend his grasp. Jordan Pickford. Thanks, James. And this is what irony means. You buy an electric car to save the planet and a tree kills it. R.I.P. to my friend who once told his wife he was going out to get some thread, but instead spent the day in the pub. Gone, but not forgotten.
Oh, subtle.
And is this the most untrustworthy Gregs in Scotland? And what's the hardest part of a cabbage to eat? It is, of course, the Sunderland scarf. Kane went to complain to the ref. This was brilliant about the penalty decision, but he remembered he can't speak German. That was very funny. He almost did the Michael Jackson moonwalk back. So Bosley looked into the camera 37 times today, the most someone's ever had in a single Premier League game. Photogenic. What on earth is he doing? And how to flirt, gaze up at him and bite your lips seductively. Another classic from Zara. And eternal cycle of an Evertonian. We're going to get top 4. I despise my dad. No, it went the other way, didn't it? F's sake. Effing Board's fault this. December. Mom, where's me blue Santa hat? January. Sign someone, please. March, sack the board. April, we're going down. May, I despise my dad. Brilliant.
Dear me.
And Liverpool have shown an interest in signing Harry Maguire. Chelsea have responded saying they aren't falling for that one. And the PGMOL thought that these new rules could keep Jason Tindall off our screens. They were wrong, says Paddy Power.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure Dixie Dean was a real person at this point. Nobody scores 300 plus goals for bloody Everton in real life, said AJ. Mark Farina finding his novel way around double yellow lines. He's been painting a third one. How to prepare tofu. 1, throw it in the bin. 2, fry some bacon. My new girlfriend and I were travelling to meet my parents when she got a flat tire. So I called my parents and said, sorry, Mum, we're going to be late. My girlfriend's got a puncture. Oh, she sighed. I thought you had a real one this time.
Yeah.
And wait, I just wanted to let you know the kids eat for free. Me, good. I'll have a water, and my daughter will have the steak and a kid's Bud Light. And anyone else? Oh, yeah, it's this one. Sorry. Finally, proof that they exist. Fork handles. Okay, into the top 4, I think I've got this week. Top 4. Okay, coming in at number 4. Reports are coming in. A large number of boats trying to cross the Tyne from south to North Shields after Sunderland's start to the season. Have you been missold a Man United season ticket? Man United season tickets have been wrongly sold to people who were expecting to watch football being played. Start your claim now to see if you've been missold a Man United season ticket. Find out how much you could be entitled to. There we go. That one's for you, Melly, if you're watching. And number 2, breaking news, Liverpool signed Elvis Costello, as there certainly does not want to go to Chelsea. The winner had to be this. Tonali sampling British culture in Wetherspoons. Sent there, we think, by Jacob Murphy. But that is a wonderful bit of banter, and it would have been a bit of gamesmanship in the dressing room. But that is your tweet of the week. Okay, lads.
So sometimes wonder if any of those people have anything else to do.
Well, that's it. Yeah, they're just constantly contacting me. Constantly contacting me. That's the way it goes during the week. But there's some absolute classics. Okay, I've seen a bit of banter in the chat tonight about photo ID demand. What is the photo ID demand? Some people might be saying, but I doubt it. Basically, anyone going to Manchester City tomorrow needs to be aware that the turnstiles and ticket offices are going to open at 6 o'clock on Saturday because there's going to be some issues. Supporters travelling to Newcastle United's Premier League fixture at Manchester City are being urged to ensure that the name on their match ticket corresponds with their identity. Newcastle, of course, travel to the Etihad on Saturday, kick off 8 o'clock, and away tickets are sold out. Spot checks are going to be carried out by Newcastle United staff at the Etihad Stadium to ensure only travelling supporters with legitimate possession of tickets are available to enter the stadium. At the turnstile, supporters who have their entry rejected during the scanning process will be directed to the away box office to be verified before a ticket is then reissued. The club is taking this step to ensure fairness to all supporters who purchase tickets through its established loyalty point system and to prevent potential ticket touting. The loyalty point system enables season ticket holders with the highest number of loyalty points accrued as 1 point per away match attended to have priority access during the sales process. The loyalty point threshold is reduced incrementally on designated days, allowing those with fewer points to eventually buy a ticket subject to remaining availability. So, getting back to the ticket holders tomorrow, they will need to display suitable photo ID if requested on entry to the Etihad Stadium. Supporters are then asked to have personal identification with them to show they are who they say they are. Those who've purchased tickets as part of a travel group will have to show photo ID that proves they are a member of the travel group. For example, if there's 4 tickets purchased as part of a travel group, as tickets will not have names or supporters numbers on, they should be distributed to the 4 people to use in any order. If you're asked to provide ID, you must be one member of that travel group. The interesting bit that they chucked at the end was this: loss of loyalty points. Should the identification not correspond with the ticket, the person the original ticket purchase is linked to will have their loyalty points deducted in full. A repeated breach may lead to the original purchaser's season ticket being cancelled. Here we are again on an Amigos show talking about tickets. George, what do you make of this one?
Over the top comes to mind. We're talking about a football match, for goodness sake. And while I'm happy that we want the right people to have tickets, is it so important that we need to go to these lengths? I'm not sure it is, to be perfectly honest. It's as I say, over the top comes to mind, and I just find it. I had somebody at my door today who's going, and he's taking his son for the first time. Now the son's got a ticket that's being provided by somebody else. Now he's expecting to have problems, and he's made it plain that if he can't get in or his son can't get in, well, they'll just not go to the match. But is that what we want? I don't know. There's got to be some control that I accept. And the other side of it is that when are Newcastle going to send their staff to every away match? Or the ticket officers at other grounds going to welcome several thousand Geordies bombing into the office to get their tickets verified before a game? I don't think we are. It has its good points and it has its bad points. And its bad points, I'm afraid, is that it has the potential for absolute chaos.
Steve, I've got to be honest. This really just is starting to get, stupid now. We've had problems at home. Granted, the first home game, in most areas was fine. Of course, we did find out, as the program, went on last week, that there were issues in the East Stand. So we know now that there has been issues at St James's Park. People were feeding it into the chat last week. I'll load a couple of photos actually, which I managed to find on Twitter from that particular situation. Anthony Hughes, chaos outside the East Stand yesterday, resulting in hundreds missing the kickoff and first goal. 2 of the queues stretched right down Terrace Place. We were there about 4:50, ended up missing the first 10 minutes. So they were disappointed that the game wasn't delayed, and I mean, there's the queues, there's the queues of people, outside the East Stand. So there were issues. So this one now, Steve, is different. This is away tickets. This is threatening fans now with removal of loyalty points and potentially expulsion if you break the rules again. Forgive us if I'm wrong, Steve, but didn't Margaret Thatcher try to bring this in the 80s, ID cards, and fail miserably?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was an MP, wasn't there, who was also the the chairman of Luton Town, and after the trouble against Millwall, he decided that ID cards were the way to go, and he pushed and pushed and pushed for that. And at the time, everybody railed back. There was no way that the country was going to go down an ID card just for football fans. Remember, this was just for football fans. For football fans to travel around the country to watch a game of football, you had to have an ID card. And it wasn't just going to be, bring your passport or bring your bus pass and something with a photograph on, something that at the time, a lot of those didn't even exist. This was a proper ID card that you're going to have to apply for through your football club. It was going to have to be official. It was going to be part of a database. It was actually designed to stifle hooliganism. Somebody somewhere at Newcastle United decided that this is a good thing, that this system that they've brought in, okay, electronic tickets. I had an electronic ticket when we went to Riyadh. I swapped it with a Saudi fan who found out that I had a ticket for a particular part of the ground, and he wanted to take his son. And I said to him, "I'm sorry, but it's an electronic ticket." And he got his son, who was 12, and the son transferred the tickets on the phones. That was my first experience of electronic ticket, to be honest, of all the places, Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I mean, somebody at Newcastle has decided that it was a good idea to just go for the Big Bang Theory of bringing in tickets. That wasn't the only place that there were queues, Steve. By the way, the East Stand, there was chaos on the concourses in the Gallagher end as well, as a couple of friends of mine told me on Saturday and Sunday. We didn't have that much trouble in the 1892, although my ticket didn't work, but the guy knew us, so he just let us in anyway. I've got to go back and get the thing sorted. But the whole situation regarding away ticketing, there's been meetings held. There's been people invited along to voice their opinion. The clubs saying that they've taken all this on board. Nothing at these meetings, by the way, was ever minuted. We have no way of knowing how true the situations were that had been reported, what people's gripes were. But if you follow the social media pattern, it split fans straight down the middle, and that's not good for Newcastle United. That's not good for our fan base to now have fans at loggerheads with each other, travelling to an away game. And now we've got the crazy, crazy system of away game where the club has actually put out some tickets that they know are going to get cancelled. They haven't even been allowed. These tickets will not work at the turnstile, which is apparently a random thing that's then going to direct fans to a marquee somewhere within that area of the turnstiles where there'll be operators from Newcastle United who will then say, "Show me your ticket. It didn't work, did it not? Show me the ticket you've got." Whether it's, some people are saying they're electronic, some people are saying they're paper, some people are saying they're a selection of both. And they're going to say, "Right, show me that your name matches the name on the ticket that was purchased." And if the name on the ticket that was purchased doesn't match what they've got on the database, you're not getting in. That is a recipe for trouble. Do Manchester police really want a horde of Newcastle fans, angry Newcastle fans, locked out of their ground? Is that what Newcastle United are going to do? Is that what they're going to leave a legacy of at the game? That, for me, is bad enough. But somebody somewhere has authorised this. Someone's had the idea at Newcastle United, and then somebody's authorised it and said, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." And again, I find that bewildering, and I find it very, very disappointing that somebody thinks that's the way to go. There should have been an awful lot more dialogue with the fans. There should have been. They should have allowed the way ticketing to see how the electronic ticketing system that they brought in works. Looked at whether or not there is a problem with it. Looked at whether or not they need to tighten the rules, but not just go for another big bang on our first away game that has just caused absolute havoc. The number of people who said to me, I'm not going to go, I can't go, I won't go, I don't want to go anymore. People who are bamboozled by the way that the loyalty point scale dropped so dramatically, and putting that down to the fact that, yes, has been a problem. I suspect there's an awful lot of fans have went, you know what, it's not worth the hassle. And the game's at 8 o'clock on a Saturday, and it's televised, and there's Champions League games abroad coming along, and I'd rather just protect myself and just save me money and hope that I've got plenty of money to go at the Champions League game and away game. I think that there's an awful lot of factors going on. I don't think it's anything specific to do with the fact that they've dropped the numbers have been dropped because they've brought this scheme in. But I just find it quite galling that our football club would go for this. Almost like I despair. I really do, and I'm struggling for the words to describe the way I feel. Is it over the top? Yes. Is it ill thought out? Yes. Is it bad business? Yes. But nobody's answerable. Nobody's going to turn around and say, "Oh, well, it was so and so's idea," and or anything like that. It's just been brought in, and I think it's totally wrong. And the scary bit for me as well, as I said earlier there, Steve, is that it's got Newcastle fans against Newcastle fans at a time when we all should be rejoicing in going to the Etihad and hopefully coming away with 3 points and then what could turn out to be an absolutely brilliant evening of football. But it's been soured, and it's been soured all week. And somebody somewhere, as I say, has authorised it. But some of our fan base, have convinced the club that this is what has to be done. And again,
that's the frustrating thing, Steve. That's the frustrating thing. There's no minutes of what's going on. We've seen the fan charter, very glossy, PDF punted out to season ticket holders, and it's a strange situation. We've covered it on the show. We've covered it on the Amigos. I try not to bring it into the other shows. I think this is always the right one to discuss it. But moving on to you, Mitch, I just think, it does leave a few question marks. And I think the key thing I got out of Steve there is divide and conquer. There seems to be some kind of either ill-thought plan to divide and conquer or well-thought plan, delete where applicable, because somebody's either playing a very clever game here or they are completely, oblivious to what our fan base is like, and that they're getting a chance to see it now, because there's a big breakdown between some fairly big parties now.
Or someone in the club's had an idea what they wanted to do, and they've gone, "You want some change? Here's some change. There you go. Deal with it." It's very difficult to know exactly how the process was done. There's no minutes, there's no record. People who claim they were close to the process are now backing off at 100 miles an hour, saying they were never close to the process in the first place. Where have we seen that before? And it's poor. Stu and I had a good chat about this afternoon. I'm super torn on this, and I'll try and explain why clearly. And it starts with the whole reason why loyalty points were being hoarded in the first place. We touched on this earlier in the week on one of the other shows, Sunderland games.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about. It was about making sure you got a ticket for Sunderland.
Yep.
That's it. Bottom line. It's become something else out of that, but that's how it started. Stu and I are of the generation where we benefited from stuff like spare tickets going. We were saying how many times we went out on a Friday night and then didn't come home till Sunday. Because on Friday night we got offered a ticket on Saturday, and that's it. We just went with it. Get the Clipper bus down to London, or jump in a ride with a load of mates and just do what you could to then go. And it was fab, and it was mates helping mates. And I've had tickets that weren't mine to get into away games. I've had plenty. I'm not going to shy away from that. Nor do I feel like I was touted or was taking advantage of touting. I paid face value, and in some cases was just given them.
Yeah.
And so, it was what it was. But that was what the whole point of hoarding loyalty points was about. It was about Sunderland. It was never about going to Premier League games and things like that. And I'm not a Luddite. I made a point about travelling from Dubai to Wembley all the way on electronic tickets until I got to Wembley, and then I had to produce something you could sail a 22-foot yacht with to get into Wembley. That seemed ridiculous, to be fair. As someone who's a bit of a technophile and I like me gadgets and I like me bits and bobs. But I also live in a society where I have this. That's my Emirates ID. That's linked to me. Chip off the back. That's my life. Can't open a bank account. You can't have a mobile phone without it. It's linked to my fingerprints and my retinal scan. There's a suggestion not too far in the future, if I travel to Bahrain, I won't need my passport. I'll just need that.
Yeah.
There's also a suggestion there's a GPS chip in it, so they know where you are when you use it as well. Took me a long time to get used to having that. It's a very different society to the one we have at home. But also at times it feels exceptionally safe. We were just talking this afternoon about a mate of mine who was on holiday in Sri Lanka, and he got a SMS saying that he'd gone through a toll gate in Dubai without any money on his toll ticket, because what had happened was he'd been burgled while he was on holiday in Sri Lanka, and somebody was driving around Dubai in one of his cars. And by the time he got home from Sri Lanka, the police had the guy locked up, had the car recovered, had the other family car recovered, and all the missing belongings, and they knew what the connection was to why he'd broken into the house and why he knew they were away. It was done before he'd even got home. And it creates a safeness in society here that people talk about. But at home in the UK, that's not what people fought in world wars for. And that's not what people give their lives up for. And you have a greater degree of freedoms. Should you need to carry something like that to go to a football match? I've even seen somebody suggesting that tickets could be passed on to terrorists today. And I'm sorry. I give up. If that's really what we're dealing with within,
I saw that.
I
saw that, yeah.
I'm all for modernising the way we do things and keeping up with the times. Why, for example, is there not an ability to even just pass it on to a small group of family and friends and say, right, such and such can't go to the match and something's happened, we've got a spare ticket. What do we do with it? Does it have to be returned to the club? Do we end up with empty seats? I'm also all for people having a chance. It's something that needed to be looked at, because as the person who complained bitterly at one of the ticket admissions, apparently that the problem with loyalty schemes is that people that go all the time get all the tickets, so the problem is loyalty.
What about something really simple, Mitch? What about something like you get the ticket, you get the loyalty point, you then pass the ticket on to someone else, you just don't get the loyalty point. The people can still go to the game, not a problem. You haven't gone to the game. It was your ticket. You've either redeemed the money for the ticket or you've given it away for free, but you didn't benefit from it. And I tell you what, most fans would be happy with something as simple as that.
And the other thing for Neil, the other thing for me is that the examples that you lads have given about being given tickets, swapping tickets, all that sort of thing. Is there any evidence that any of that did any harm to Newcastle United? I don't think there is. I don't think there is. Just people want to go to a bloody football match at the end of the day.
It really frustrates. I mean, the loyalty point system needed an overhaul of some sort. And again, I'll use myself as an example. I was category 1 for Wembley by accident. I've got enough historical loyalty points, and I happened to go to the Southampton semi-final game because I was home for my mum's funeral. I went to Wembley in category 1 by accident. I certainly wasn't expecting it, and nor should I have. I've not lived in the UK for 10 years, even though I've kept my season ticket. That makes, a nonsense of the loyalty point system in some respects. All you had to do was take something where, right, loyalty points last for 5 years, anything older than 5 years gets scrubbed off, and that would remove, I reckon, the majority of people with historical loyalty points hoarding points because they had access to tickets in a stroke. And it's simple. And it's something that people can understand. And it also then gives young'uns who are wanting to build their points up more of a chance to build their points up, which is actually easy to do. But you know what? It's not your right and your privilege now we're a good team to have a ticket to an away game. Where were you at Swansea on a Tuesday night? Where were you at Plymouth on a Wednesday night? Where were you at Exeter away in the League Cup on a Thursday night? Have you done the hard yards? Because a lot of people have. And I've got a lot more time for you if you've done the hard yards, not just rocking up expecting to have a ticket, thanks, because we're good now. That annoys me. And I think that's where, again, I talk about generational gaps in my fan base. I think that's another generational gap. And I think there's a group of fans, and they'll probably be about my age, who wanted their loyalty points all for one thing and one thing only, Sunderland ticket.
Yeah. 100%. That's where it all started. That's where the problem started. There's always going to be people happy. There's always going to be people unhappy. I'm all for people who've never had a chance of getting an away ticket, getting one. I think it's a great idea. I just think the draconian Big Brother, George Orwell type attitude and the way that it's been done stinks. And I do believe certain fans have tried to feather their own nest in this situation.
And I think that's why I'm probably of a different mindset, because I've had 10 years of carrying an Emirates ID around.
Mm-hmm. Tell you what, Mitch, lose that Emirates ID.
Oh, don't.
Then you're in a different ball game, though, aren't you?
I managed to knock the chip on it so it wouldn't work. Dear me.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was a pain in the ass. Try being between jobs. Then your visa needs renewing, and then your mobile phone needs renewed, and nobody will talk to you because you've got no active Emirates ID, and then you're on the 60-day clock before they cut your phone off. All of these things, it's stuff I just get used to. Even if I want to pay money into my own bank account, if I go to a cash deposit machine and I've got cash money that I want to put into my own account, I've got to put my Emirates ID into the machine to say it's me putting it in.
Yeah.
And I have to go back.
I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
I
have to go back to the fact that
I would have no problem rocking up with an ID to get into a football game, because I bloody well have to show me ID just about everywhere in Dubai most of the time anyway.
Yeah. I have to go back to the idea when you talk to the right people, when you listen. Not just talk, but when you listen to suggestions and then you take them away like apparently they did. It's no good just taking a list of suggestions and going, yeah. I tell you what, let's just throw the whole lot in the bin and come up with what tends to be a hodgepodge of everything. A simple way. You want to transfer your ticket, you transfer it. It's electronic. You transfer it. And then you lose the loyalty point. And I doubt very many people who get a ticket and then have to pass it on to someone else would be that bothered. You would have killed the whole thing as a stroke. But instead you go for this scattergun approach and you get people coming up with all sorts of convoluted reasons why this is wrong and that's wrong. And it's a gripe. It's not something that's specifically identifying a problem. It's a gripe. It's something that's bugged them. And what they actually want is they want the loyalty points themselves. They want a chance to build their own loyalty points up to the detriment of other people who they think has been involved. Just at a stroke, they could have resolved this if they'd thought about it rationally and sensibly, but instead they haven't. And I had a phone call, a message from someone today I'll give you an idea, someone from Ireland who said, I was planning to come over. in for the Crystal Palace game, we can't even organise the trip now because the people who normally get the tickets off, we can no longer guarantee that we'll be in receipt of tickets. We're going to have to go into some crazy ballot system for tickets. And basically, is it worth the hassle of being a Newcastle United supporter and being a member and then trying to get tickets from somewhere like Belfast or Dublin and paying everything that you need to pay well in advance to get a decent flight and to book a hotel? Now they're no longer going to do that. What I said to them was, I tell you what, set yourself up as an international travel group, an international travel fan club, and then apply for tickets as an international travel fan club and see how successful you might be. And you know what? They do that, they might get 1 or 2 or 3 tickets provided. Who knows? But it's worth them going down that line than just throwing the whole lot in the bin and just saying we're not going to come anymore. Because I feel for that. I feel for those situations. There are an awful lot of people who do travel from Dublin and from Ireland, and they're not season ticket holders. They're not members as such because they're not going to take the risk of going into a ballot. They came over because they used to get tickets from friends who could get them tickets, and now it's no longer happening. The number of tickets used to come to the food bank that people would hand over to us and say, find someone. If someone comes up and makes a donation and hasn't got a ticket, there's a ticket for them. And I tell you what, the other thing is, and this is more than anecdotally, the number of tickets that I heard that were being sold on match days at St James's Park by touts came from an allocation from within the club itself, tickets that had come from people within the club. That's the area that maybe the club should have been looking at. Because I remember buying a couple of tickets. I got a couple of tickets for someone. I gave my tickets away. This is going back a few years now. Give my ticket away to somebody, and then I bought a couple of tickets from someone outside the ground. When I got the ticket and I looked, and it had been allocated, and I was sitting in an area where there was people from the football club sitting, footballers, families, juniors, people who work for the club. So that was people exploiting the situation from within. Their tickets had ended up. And yet it's us fans who are getting accused of ticket touting. This is like, a hornet's nest.
Of course it is. And you can see in the chat, there's people falling out, not massively, just people saying one thing, saying another, people getting aerated. This is what it's like on social media. It's a small little packet, small little pocket on here we're seeing tonight. And everyone's now moved on. So thanks for doing that in the chat. But it's not good. It's not good. And, it's divisive. And ultimately, that's not good for the support. I think there's so many positives. Don't get us wrong. And people in the chat, I think there's a lot of positives to this. I just think it's the cockeyed way that they've done it. They haven't. There's a lot of this could have been thought out a lot better. There are other ways of doing it, and I'm not saying that. I think the way that they reduced the loyalty points, I think that all of that is right. I just think they've consulted one section of supporters and they've just taken their ideas and run with it. And I keep saying this. However many 40,000 season ticket holders, you've got 40,000 season ticket holders you can listen to. They can give you an answer to the way they want things to go. But look, listen, we'll move on. It's we've got just half an hour. Go on, George, quickly. I want to move on from tickets.
Yeah, well, this is more about general things rather than just tickets. The club, the new owners. The owners, stop saying new owners, the owners have done fantastic things, and yet the big failure is dealing with the fans. And this is one of them. And I find that amazing that the basic unit of the club are the fans. And yet this is another example how the fans have just been let down, in my view.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's just communication. They're not going to get everything right, but they need to get this right. And, they've set the wheels in motion now, so we'll see what happens. Okay, we are over halfway through the show. It's time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com and they've got a website which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket. Win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com.
Okay, I'm going to be bringing in a Manchester City fan very shortly, Dean Lynch Ward, who was a good pal of mine. He's set up his own YouTube channel, which he'll be commenting on Man City games over the course of the season. So we're going to have somebody from the other side of Manchester, which I'm looking forward to. But first, we will look ahead with our good friend Toon Stato.
Hello all, what a game this Saturday. We play the European champions, but we have nothing to fear since we are top of the league. We play Manchester City and we have never won at the Etihad in the Premier League since they moved to their new stadium. In 18 games we have lost 16 and we have drawn twice. The last time we kept a clean sheet was back in September 2006. Our goalkeeper that day was Steve Harper. The last time we took the lead at their stadium was back in 2015 when Alexander Mitrovic opened the scoring, but they still beat us 6-1. And the last player to have scored against them at the Etihad was DeAndre Yedlin back in 2018, so we haven't scored a goal there for 5 years. To make it even worse, we have 14 consecutive losses in Manchester. Of course, we won back in 2014 in the League Cup, famously with goals by Rolando Arans and Moussa Sissoko. When it comes to players, of course, they have this monster Erling Haaland, who has scored 38 goals in 36 Premier League games. But we have Callum Wilson, who has scored 5 goals as a substitute, which is the most of all the Premier League players. When it comes to overall stats, we have not won our 2 opening games of the season since 1997, when we beat Sheffield Wednesday and Aston Villa at home. Now we beat Villa in our first game, as you all know, so here's a chance that we do this 26 years later. Let's enjoy the game and let's hope that we'll deliver the surprise on Saturday. Cheers.
Okay, thanks to Tune Stato. For those of you who are regular watchers of the show as well, you will know that Scunny Mag does an away day guide. So here it is before we bring Dean in.
Hi folks, Scunny Mag Paul here with your first away day guide of the season to Man City away. We win this one, we're in a very good position. And for those that are wondering, yes, it was me. Let's get into it. If you're driving in and parking, you want to be in the Etihad Blue car park for away fans. The What 3 Words robot risk types. That'll set you back £10 and it's advisable to book. Just across the road from that, there's a little fish and chip shop, which is cracking by the way. And down the side of that, there's some back gates to a school field that they open up for matchday parking. That'll be £10 as well. It's the Resurrection School, but I always prefer to use local schools and community groups and things like that because it gives something back. Yeah, What 3 Words for that entrance is Jets asking this, and that'll take you straight down the side of the chip shop. For those coming in on train, Piccadilly is the popular one, and that feeds out into the city centre. There are plenty of pubs around there. Nearer the ground, you're going to struggle a little bit. I found two. But the most popular one is Piccadilly Tavern, just outside Piccadilly. Turn right as you leave the main entrance, follow the road, and you'll hear the fans singing outside the pub unless you're one of the first ones there. The postcode for that is Mike 1-2 Bravo Sierra, and your What 3 Words is Soap Long Salads. The stadium, it's about a 25-30 minute walk or a 10-minute taxi drive once you've found a taxi and got there. If you want to get nearer to the ground, there are two options. The Bradford Inn is to the north of the stadium. You'll have to come right around to the other side for the away turnstiles though. Your postcode is Mike 407 Alpha Sierra, and your What 3 Words for that one is Songs Epic Shades. And the other one is just to the south of the stadium, but more into the estate, and that's called the Townley. It's at 31 Albert Street. Your postcode is Mike 113 Quebec Whiskey, and your What 3 Words is Supporter Refers Really. And then once you're ready to head up to the ground, your away turnstiles are on the southeast corner. You'll be across 3 levels of the stadium, but your turnstile entrance, What 3 Words, will be Oldest Singer Hips, which should get you nicely into the ground. That's it from me. Hope it was useful. See you soon.
Okay. Good evening, Dean Lynchboard, Manchester City fan, podcaster for this season. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, pal. I'm all right. Just, I'll be honest, mate. I'm not looking forward to Saturday after the way we performed the other night. So I know we've got a lot of problems. We've got a lot of problems in the squad, and I know you haven't got a good track record against us, but this just could be your chance to beat the champions.
Interesting to hear say that, because obviously De Bruyne, we watched, that last week. He's out, hamstring issues again. We saw Pep's basic concern, and then you're missing John Stones tomorrow now, and Bernardo Silva, I think, is potentially out as well. So yeah,
and we got Diaz. Diaz isn't going to be 90-minute match fit, and the problem we've got, you've got to look at it like this. We've only got a target man. If De Bruyne does, if Haaland doesn't get no service, we might as well play with 10 men. And this is the kind of game where, defensively last year, you were probably one of the best in the Premier League defensively, which was Newcastle. You had a run from October till January, February. You nearly went like the Untouchables. So what you've got to look at is if our target man, Haaland's got to do a lot more tomorrow than just wait for service. He's got to do a bit of work. You can't just keep waiting for service, because if he doesn't get no service, we've not really got anyone. You got to look at it as well. We've played a lot of football, and you've got the likes of Jack Grealish now. The way Jack Grealish was the other night, he was awful. He was awful. He didn't play. Now, you can put a lot of facts. He's played a lot of football. Was it the heat? It is what it is. But, and I listen.
Just lost him at the key moment, but I think he was going to say Newcastle might do well. I think he's just with him being on his mobile. I'll bring him back in. Yeah. Interesting to hear, George, a Manchester City fan, bigging Newcastle up and saying this could be our chance, George.
Well, he's not wrong, is he? Look at the way we played and the way they played, and look at the players that they've got going out. And I think John Stones, for me, is one of the most underrated players in the Premiership, and they're going to miss him, no doubt about that. And the Silva as well, and De Bruyne. is just a world class player. So, and I think Grealish was bad the other night. Yes, he's played a lot of games. He's drunk a lot of bloody beer as well in the last 6 months. So I think it is what chance. I think he's absolutely right about that. And if we go about it the right way, I'm not sure that whoever was playing, it would make that much difference, to be perfectly honest. But it's right that there are significant things in our favour, and I go with no trepidation at all, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Dean, because I know you're in the motor, and we could lose you.
Yeah.
I mean, Newcastle United. You said they had a great, we had a great season last season. Really good defensive qualities about us as well. The first game that we played against Man City last season, though, was a 3-3 draw. Are you expecting a similar kind of game tomorrow? I mean, that was toe to toe, two big teams last season.
But I mean, obviously, I'm pretty much like yourself. I sit with a lot of the City lads, and I sit with some of the lads who've been watching the game. We've had this debate, and I can see it. I've got it 3-1. And I said if we don't pull our finger out, it's 3-1 the other way. I think Cole Palmer's going to come on. He's going to be superb. They're going to take him off again. He's going to score. I think Ireland, because if Grealish is a bit drained, for me, he looked a bit drained the other day. He's played a lot of football. And cutting in, Grealish isn't the best at cutting in, which, he cuts in and he's De Bruyne. He needs De Bruyne. And Alvarez, there's only so much Alvarez can do. Kovacic, for me, you seem to have a lot of legs, but he's like an headless chicken. And I mean, what you've got to remember is your team at the minute, Newcastle's actually gelled from last season. You brought one player in, which is Tonali. And did you see that goal he scored the other day? It was a screamer. Do you know what I mean? And so I personally think we're going to get done on Saturday. I mean, I don't want us to get done, guys, but I've got to be honest and say it how I see it. Been watching Man City a long time, and it's just we've played a lot of football. And, when you're coming in, I mean, no team, I mean, to be fair, there's only two teams that started the league off impressively, which was us and Newcastle. I think you're going to be the biggest threat in the Premier League, but then we've got to see how you plan out how it fares for you with Champions League as well with the football. But I don't think you'll struggle there. I think come to like Christmas time. But I think tomorrow is going to be the decider of Newcastle and City, and it's going to be a 2-horse race this season. I don't put Arsenal in a 2-horse race, if you want me to be honest, in personal opinion.
Interesting, because Blue Rhythm Boy had said, who do you see as your main competitor? Do you think Arsenal's a competitor? So you don't see them, but you think Newcastle could be, Dean? Well,
I mean, you got to look at, if you look at Arsenal last season, they had it all in their favour. There was 12 points ahead of us in March. Do you know what I mean? And we caught them, the heads fell off. I mean, that's typical Arsenal. I mean, no disrespect to Arsenal fans, but that's typical Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to remember your season. You literally came from nowhere last season, and you've run everyone's tail. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you let me down when you got beat off Man U, and then 2 weeks later you played them and beat them. But I mean, that's football. But personally, I do think we're going to get done. And I have said that, but I'm going to be at the match. But like I said, it's not only that we've got John Stones out, Bernardo Silva's not playing, Diaz is he's not match fit. I know he's not 100% match fit, and like you're saying, was missing Diaz at the back the other night. I mean, obviously we still grinded out the result. We won on penalties by the skin of our teeth. I'm not being funny, but the way we beat teams like Real, we've had a good pre-season. We've brought in so-called decent players, but for me, they're just looking like Josko Gardival. He looked mediocre. Kovacic, who were raving about him, he looked mediocre. And when you've won a treble like the way we've won a treble, and you're at the top, you can't bring players that are just going to play flat. They've got to hit the ground running. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if you look at your players, your team, you've got an awesome team. And that Callum Wilson, he's unbelievable. I mean, Botman last season for you was outstanding. My personal opinion. Then you've brought Tonali, he's just slotted straight in. Because I mean, you played Tonali now. It's like,
yeah, he's gone again. But we've got the gist of it. He's having a bit of a nightmare with his mobile phone. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go and go around the board again and talk about the game tomorrow. Newcastle United playing Manchester City. Steve, TNT used to be BT Sport are covering the game. It's going to be an 8 o'clock kickoff tomorrow night. We've heard from Dean. He thinks it's going to be a tough game. He's talking about Manchester City losing the game, which is interesting. What are you expecting tomorrow night? It is good to hear a real Manc supporter Manchester team, says Roger as well. I think that's a little joke there from Mark as well. It's so much better than Melly, he says. But yeah, I mean, what are you expecting tomorrow, Steve?
You know what? I mean, as somebody who went in that 2015 game, saw Mitrovic put in the lead and thought this is it, and then watched we get 6 in and one player scored 5, if I remember rightly. You know, it's one of those. It's turned into a graveyard for. I don't know what City are about at the minute. I can't put my finger on it. They just won the treble. I don't know. Halfway through last season, they formed out Cancelo. Laporte is supposed to be going to Spain. This was like at one point the sort of like the bedrock of that team. They got rid of Gundogan. They lost Silva last year. They brought Kovacic in, who, quite frankly, I thought was well past his best at Chelsea, and yet they paid money for him. I don't know what's going on with Cole Palmer. If you know, you just heard Dean there saying, "Oh, Cole Palmer this and Cole Palmer that," but earlier in the week we were hearing from Guardiola, who was saying, "We don't know what Cole Palmer's future is going to be. You know, he might not be around, or he might sign some ridiculously long contract." They're without De Bruyne. This is the time that Newcastle United, who, let's face it, started last week like a rocket. And I mean, it could have been 7 or 8. Let's not put too fine a point on it. Against a team who was supposed to be one of our main competitors for what, 4th or 5th or even 6th, according to certain pundits, in terms of because this was the team that was going to push us all the way for that one of those European spots. And we absolutely played them off the park in the second half. But getting back to City, I just don't know where they are at the moment. I just don't know where they are. And that's why I'm going to go for a victory tomorrow, Steve. I think we are. I don't think it's going to be an easy game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going in all flash and flamboyant, but I think we could steal this. I think there's a 1-0 win in there, and we could steal it. The surprise, if it is 1-0, is that we wouldn't have conceded, and that's the only other concern I have, because back end of last season, and then again we saw it on Saturday. The defense isn't as tight as it was, and that for me, considering last season we went on that run where I think Pope, was like nearly 10 games without conceding. We're heading towards that. And then all of a sudden we started to concede goals like it was, it didn't bother us. Whether that's because we went into the Kevin Keegan mode of, just attack, I'm not too sure. But the fact that you concede goals in the Premiership makes it very, very difficult to sometimes get back. But if we can keep a clean sheet tomorrow, then I think there's every chance we could walk away with 3 points.
Okay, so you're going for a win. George, what are you going for?
2-1 to us.
2-1 to Newcastle. Okay, Mitch, did you take the dice to Bahrain?
I did.
Oh, interesting. Well, give us your thoughts on the game tomorrow first.
There's something very un-Pep-like about Man City at the moment, and the biggest measure of that for me is the De Bruyne injury. I've been to 3 medical conferences now, and I've spoken to people from Barcelona, from Man City, from Bayern Munich. Pep uses science far more than people realise. Than he does finger in the wind decisions, trusting the judgment of players, or trusting the judgment even of club doctors about whether somebody's fit to play or not. For De Bruyne to get re-injured to what seems like at least as bad as the injury he suffered in the Champions League, is a big misstep from Pep Guardiola. That's very unlike him. He's whinging. When he whinges, usually it's about something that's worth whinging about.
That's true.
And he's whinging about preparation times for games and the Premier League, not allowing him to play on Sunday. Does 8 p.m. Saturday or 12:30 a.m. Sunday really make that much difference? I'm not really convinced. Mentally, maybe. But it would suggest that he's got concerns. That statement about Cole Palmer was bizarre. He's not going out on loan. He's either going to be sold or he'll stay. What? Then what does that do for Palmer? It's hardly a vote of confidence, you know. So there's something very unpep-like about the way they're going about their business, and that's probably why they listen to a Man City fan sound concerned. That's probably why they sound concerned, because they recognise something's not right. Something's not here. That was here last year. That was here the year before. I've got used to Man City having the Manchester swagger that we traditionally was, you know, held by their rivals. And now I don't sense any swagger. I sense concern. And this could be our best opportunity in a long, long time to rock up and stick the knife in. And I would personally, you know, be delighted if that happens. But certainly we will go there and give them a game, and they know we're coming to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're happy about that. I think they've got their concerns about how they're going to manage that.
He also made another interesting comment as well, Mitch, didn't he? An interesting comment about the supporters getting behind the team. Dear me,
yeah.
When Eddie Howe has to make a statement like that about us getting behind the team in a home game, then I'll start to worry.
Yeah, good point.
What did you make of his rant at Haaland on half-time at Burnley in front of everybody? I mean, I thought that was weird for a Premier League manager to do that on the field in front of everybody.
It's again very unpep-like.
Yeah.
And that's the curious thing that sticks with me, you know.
To me, it is very Pep-like, because he's a control freak and he sees something that's not going on. He wants to let the rest of the people. He's turning into a bit of a Mourinho in that respect. It's like, because he runs that game on the touchline for the full 90 minutes. You see the way he operates, and he spots something tiny. The lad scored goals. The lad scored 2 goals, and yet he's hounding him. And I thought it was embarrassing. And I thought, a player like Haaland, he could go the other way. He could go, you know what, get stuffed. I don't want to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he would be quite within his rights as well, in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
And if you remember, he pushed the camera away. That told you that he's. I think he's under extreme pressure, because he knows that he's just won the treble. And what is the expectation of Man City and the owners? Win the treble again? That's pressure. That is probably what they said. Now we've won it once. We want to win that Champions League twice. We want to guarantee that the league. He's under immense pressure, and I think it's shown with him. And I think also some of the people that are bought, as I say, when you go out and buy Kovacic and yes, Guardiola is rated very, very highly in Europe. But I just go back to, again, the World Cup and yes, Messi, you know, he did absolutely time and nuts. And he's one of those players who's probably never recovered from it.
What's the dice say then, Mitch?
The dice says 0-1.
1-0 to Toon. Wow. Going to be a tight game then. Be interesting. See what that is interesting. We'll see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go with a score draw tomorrow. I'm not optimistic of a win. I do think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think it'll be very tight. I don't think it's going to be gung ho. But I think Newcastle will get off to a good start. I think Man City will peg us back. But yeah, I think we'll get a goal down there. But I think it's going to be a tighter game. So I'm going to.
Can I ask you guys a question? If we do win tomorrow, what do you think the reaction will be from the press and from the rest of football if we beat the treble winning team tomorrow? Do you think people will suddenly stand up, or do you think they'll come out and say it was a fluke because they had injury problems and they were without the
net spend again?
Yeah, it'll be Saudi money beat Emirates money.
Yeah, it's as simple as that, isn't it? That's what they'll do, 100%. There's no doubt about it. It'll become about the money. But yeah, okay. We've still got 2 lookalike. Some interesting ones this week, some ones we've not had before, and a couple which I chucked in as well, which I'd managed to see on the TV. This one, I was watching the French Connection, lads, and to my surprise, Tonali's in it.
Oh, brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant on the left there, the old fishmonger.
Yeah.
So there we go, one of the detectives. Thanks to Mark Byers for this one, Klopp and Deirdre Barlow and Kirk Bride, of course. And there was somebody on Sky Sports News this week who I thought had a passing resemblance to me, Dad. So there's my second.
Yes,
There's my second submission of the week this week. Anyway, Tom Dixon, as always, with a few suggestions. That was his first one. Chris Hughton and Barack Obama was his second one. And Peter Crouch and Rodney Trotter.
Yes.
Was Tom's third, and his fourth one, Gus Poyet and Mr. Bean.
Which one's which?
More about the poses, I think, than anything else. This one, again, we've had a few of these different selections of these, but it's a good photo of the bag, I'd say. This one as well, Mark Margolis and John Justice Allen.
Yeah.
And this one, Rita, Andy Cap, and our good friend Al Walid.
Steve, am I having deja vu? Or did you do some of these last week?
Maybe I did. Unfortunately for me, I've just got back from my holidays, and on the system, these were down as not seen. So clearly, these ones have been.
It's been imbibed.
I definitely think you're right. I think you definitely think you're right there.
Right.
Hasty Hits Ibiza. This is definitely new.
Run stuff on. Away, lad, man.
And Spenny Mag from Sam. Does he smoke cigars? He says.
Poor Spenny.
Jopadini for this one. Tay Diggs from the movie Equilibrium, and Diaby from the City of Birmingham's second best football team.
Hey, it's look at that.
One from Andrew. Donkey from Shrek. And a bike. Esther Ranson and Jurgen Klopp from Stephen Parker.
There's a theme there.
Anybody with teeth is going to get him, aren't they?
Steve Acey used to be Ralph Mouth on Happy Days. So Stephen Kennedy.
Goodness gracious.
Well, I wasn't the Fonz, I know that.
Michael Jones says John McGinn and the boy from Deliverance.
Yes. Do you know he didn't actually play the banjo either? That was somebody else's hand that played the banjo.
Ned Kelly and a member of the coaching staff, or the coaches. I'm not sure who that is.
Yeah. Yes.
And Eddie Izzard and who?
Pink.
Jamie Vardy and Step 2. Honestly, we just get different versions of that each week, I'm sure. Captain Black and Mikel Arteta from Albert.
Yeah. Stingray.
And Steve Hasty. Jimmy didn't say that, but I did.
No, I knew you would.
Walter White, again, we've had that one before a few times. Into the top four. Ross and Miguel.
Oh, I think that's cruel on Miguel, that.
Yeah, it is.
Top three. Daniela Westbrook and Les Dawson.
That's cruel on Les.
Yeah.
Number 2, Elon Musk and Kathy Bates.
That's cruel on Kathy Bates.
And the winner this week, Dave Wild with the late entry. It's not a dog that looks like Steve Hasty, he says, but new signing Lewis Hall, an American basketball player, Mac McClung, must have the same dad.
Good. That is very good.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks for your lookalikes. Keep them in. Some actual real lookalikes this week as well. It does help. And of course, the day I met, the music that lots of people hate. we've got an abundance of these, so please keep them coming. You like it, Mitch, don't you? You like the money,
I do.
the music. Sorry, you like the music. Okay,
do.
well here it is. The day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, whether it's past or present. And Stephen Moore said, he sent me this. He says, the day I met my Isla, who's in the black outfit, was at the Aston Villa match. And this is the day she met Amanda and Mirdad and Callum Wilson. So
Well done.
Thanks, Stephen.
Brilliant.
Thanks
Well
for sending that in. I hope Isla enjoyed seeing herself
Neil.
on the show. That's fantastic.
Yeah, mum liked the music as well, Neil.
Oh, fantastic. Here it is again. Finish off 5 minutes. Couple of quick ones. Rochi said, "What do you think of Stuart Pearce's comments? Stuart Pearce thinks we can win the league." And Morris Kennedy just said, "What do you think about one of the ITK channels, as he calls it, saying that Bruno has an agreement in place to join Barcelona next summer?" Just a couple of quick points. Go around the board. George, your views on Stuart Pearce saying Newcastle will win the league in the next few years was more or less what he was saying. He wasn't saying they're going to win the league this season, but he feels that they will win the league sooner rather than later. And what do you make of these? You know, I've seen a few people linking Bruno with an exit. He's happy here, George, is what I think. I don't think he's looking to leave in the slightest.
I've got a lot of respect for Stuart Pearce as a footballer and as a man who's been in the game a long time. If he really thinks that, then why not? Don't we think that in the next few years we're going to win the league? Because I do. Otherwise, what's the point? I'm really confident enough to feel that not too far down the road we're going to be in there with a shout. So I'm not going to argue with Stuart Pearce. I think he's probably right, and I hope he's right. As to the Bruno thing, well, I think I've said before on here and other platforms, if you've got good players, they're going to be linked with big teams, and Barcelona doesn't get much bigger. But I agree with you. He's so involved in the club. He's so involved in Newcastle. His family's so involved in Newcastle. I would be amazed if that lad went anywhere, and particularly Barcelona. So is it an agent's ploy to get him a better contract, or is it somebody else? I don't know. I would be amazed if he did that, but who knows? If they say money talks, well, if money talks, then okay, we just get a new Bruno. It's as simple as that for me. If he really is that way inclined, that something else has attracted him other than what he's got on Tyneside. He has the potential to become a god on Tyneside, and I don't say that lightly. Say it to the players that have gone through our club, and he's in that rare position. If he wants to give that up for pastures new, then good luck to him. But I don't think he will. I think he's too involved.
Okay, Steve, those 2 points. Is Stuart Pearce lost his marbles, or do you think he's right back in Newcastle in the way that he has? And Bruno, more mischief from different quarters this time about Bruno potentially going somewhere. What's your thoughts?
I think Stuart Pearce is absolutely right. I wholeheartedly agree with him. I'm a Newcastle fan, and I think we will win the league. I think we could do it this season. If we beat City tomorrow, I think it's the marker. I think that if anybody who watched the game on Monday night knows that Manchester United have got nothing, not at the moment anyway. Liverpool, watched that game, Liverpool-Chelsea game. Neither of them played anywhere near the standard that we've put in on Saturday. So I'm looking there and I'm thinking if the first game of the season is anything to go by, they're no concern. I didn't see Arsenal. I don't know how they played, but I don't think Arsenal will be able to reach the heights that they reached last season. I think we're on the up and they were on the slide. So I think Pierce is right, and it might not take a couple of seasons. It might be next season. And as for the in the nose, I'll tell you what, if you're going to come out with a statement like that, produce the proof. You know, show us your mettle and say, don't just come out with, I've heard, but show your mettle. Show us. I raised the point last week about Bruno, and I said that he needed to pull his socks up. I tell you what, he proved us right in a way, because boy, did he show last weekend that with another good quality player alongside him in Tonoli, that he can raise his game, and if he's fit, I think we're gonna, if he can stay fit, I think we're gonna see a tremendous season from him, because he is a quality act. And yes, George is dead right. Clubs like Barcelona and Real Madrid will come sniffing around, but I tell you what, if we're winning the league and we're doing okay in the Champions League, he's going to be happy here.
All right, same questions to you, Mitch, before we finish.
With regards to Stuart Pearce, the one thing I'd say about him is he's like many players who spend some time on Tyneside, who are football people. They get bitten by the bug when they're here, and they get giddy when we're doing well, and they want to do well. He's not the only one putting his money where his mouth is. Mr. Penman behind me has put his money where his mouth is on us having the potential to win the league this season, and based on last season, why not? It's not too far a stretch. God, 2 years ago it was a hell of a stretch, but this is the progress we've made. So I don't have anything against Stuart Pearce getting a little bit carried away. I want to enjoy the moment. I want us to enjoy this journey every step of the bloody way. And talking about getting giddy about maybe he's doing something spectacular, that's the hope and the joy and the wonder that we've got back in our football club at the moment. So there's nothing wrong in that. With regards to Bruno and contracts, look, there's people within our fan base. If they told me it was raining, I'd want to do two things. I want to check, is it raining? And I'd also want to check, are you pissing on me back?
Brilliant. That's a great. I don't even think I'll play the outro music. We'll just cut the show off. Okay, folks, that is the end of the Three Amigos this week. Have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the game. I am going to be back tomorrow. I will do a live with the Eddie Howe press conference. I have already been through it. I'm going to do that tomorrow. We're going to do Match Day Live tomorrow night. So 7:30, we will be tuning in to the game. And if you want to watch along with us, then feel free. There'll be a panel of fans who aren't going to the game and who won't be ID'd, who will be on tomorrow night. So I will be watching that with those guys tomorrow night. But as always, thanks to George, thanks to Steve, thanks to Mitch, thanks to Scunny Mag, thanks to Andrea, and thanks to Dean for popping in. But most importantly, thanks to you guys for making it such a great evening. And it is good to be back live. I enjoyed my break, but we are back and we will be live again tomorrow night. Take care, lads. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody. Ta-da. Ta-da.